谢谢他们提供的宝贵资料与痛苦的见证，使这次纪念大会的内容更为丰富、更有意义。亲爱的天父，我们请您祝福所有毛泽东受害者的家人，祝福他们健康、幸福、快乐。亲爱的天父，请赐给我们智慧，让我们永远记住这些受害者的故事，让历史永远不再重复同样的错误。亲爱的天父，我们要感谢您赐给我们最好的礼物，那就是我们能生活在这个自由安全的国家。我们非常感谢美国的宪法及其赋予我们的权利。我们也要感谢那些保护我们自由安全的军人，让我们一起祝福他们军人节快乐。奉耶稣基督的名，阿们。
Next, we will all stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. We will have Lily introduce the Pledge of Allegiance to us.
In honor of one nation under God, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I can't even see it. Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Representative Kay Christopherson is the reason we are here. In 2019, he championed HB 116, which made November 7th Victims of Communism Day. This has been an official commemorative day for 3 years. But beginning today, we are all a part of this historic moment, making the day official by holding this event here in this majestic building. We are so grateful that Representative Christopherson helped us in sponsoring this event. Representative Christopherson has been a great servant to the people of District 56 in Lehigh since 2013. He and his wife have 7 beautiful children, and they believe in the importance of family. We are indeed grateful for his service to our state and his commitment to freedom. Please help me welcome Representative Kay Christopherson.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. You can hear all this. This is a tough venue to be in because it echoes. So, but I appreciate all of you being here. This is great to see this many people supporting those who have been victimized by the evils of communism. And I really want to thank Lisa Fifield for her efforts in making this event possible, organizing the speakers and those who are involved in the essay contest, and for setting this up and getting ready. So I appreciate her effort. She's done a great job. And let's give her a big round of applause. Thank you. I'm excited to hear the speeches from those who have presented the winning essays, and we appreciate the help of those who worked with them on that. But, as Lisa said, I ran this legislation to create the Victims of Communism Memorial Day in Utah, and that was made in conjunction with other states who were trying to make that day a memorial for those victims. And the reason I felt compelled to do that is because without having a knowledge or a remembrance or an understanding of what happened in the past, sometimes we can repeat those things that aren't so good. And this is an effort to say, for those who remember what's happened in communist countries, to say it's important to keep that in front of mind so that we don't, so that we know what steps to take to avoid those problems in the future. And for those who haven't had that experience, it's good to learn. And children, it's good to learn those lessons and understand the horrible consequences of communistic countries. And, based on the philosophy of Karl Marx, communism has proven incompatible with the ideals of liberty, prosperity, and dignity of human life, and has given rise to such infamous totalitarian dictators as Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong, Ho Chi Minh, Pol Pot, Nikolai Ceausescu, and the Castro brothers and the Kim dynasty. Through false promises of equality and liberation, communist regimes have, as a matter of government policy, robbed their own citizens of the rights of freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of association through coercion, brutality, and fear. Many victims of communism were persecuted as political prisoners for just speaking out against these regimes. Others were killed in a genocidal state-sponsored purge. In addition to violating basic human rights, the communist regimes have suppressed freedom of conscience, cultural life, and self-determination in more than 40 nations. And I would say the people in communist countries, for the most part, are honorable people. It's the leadership that is coercive and corrupted that drives these nations down. And for that matter, it affects the whole world in what they do. Communism worldwide has been responsible for well over 100 million untimely deaths and subjected countless others to the worst and widest spread human rights abuse known to history, with victims representing many different ethnicities, creeds, and backgrounds. What other system in the world has caused so much grief and loss for so many? I hope we never forget that. And now Utah is joining forces with other states to commemorate the victims of communism on the 7th of November. And I commend those of you who have recognized these threats to personal freedom and have acted with courage to distance yourselves from the evils of communism. May you be an inspiration to those who see your resolve to take the higher path. Appreciate the honor of being here and looking forward to hearing from these wonderful children. Thank you.
Representative Candace Perucci is passionate about working for people she serves. She is a Republican member of the Utah House of Representatives for District 52 in Riverton. At the time of her appointment to the House, she was the youngest member of the Utah State Legislature. She has worked in this capacity since 2019. We are very grateful for her commitment to sponsor bills which defend the Constitution and the children in our state from foreign influences. She and her husband are raising their family in the community in which she is so valiantly serving. Please help me welcome Representative Candace Perucci.
Thank you for putting this together. You're fantastic. And also, I think we all just have to commit now to support Lily in her run for Congress someday. So we'll all be contributing to that campaign. I know where your mom is, but you should be very proud. She's very articulate. That one needs to go now. So I am so grateful for the opportunity to be here, and what a turnout for an evening event. People are busy because you know this matters. This is important. In 1776, the founders of the United States boldly put pen to paper and declared their commitment to essential divine rights and truths. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Declaration of Independence was the first government document in the world to recognize that man had natural rights. When we are allowed to freely exercise our natural rights, we can flourish and lift others around us in miraculous ways. Freedom is what all people yearn for, regardless of where they live and what circumstances of their lives they're in. However, when governments are run by despots, tyrants, or even well-intentioned but misguided people who ignore the natural God-given rights of individuals, people suffer. There are many examples of different forms of government that have attempted to stamp out the flame of freedom in the human soul, but the halls of heaven are filled with over 100 million people who have fallen victim to communism, a testament of the truly evil nature of this form of government. Among communist governments, the Chinese Communist Party's reign under Mao will always hold the worst place in history. Indeed, the biggest mass murdering regime in the history of the world was not Hitler or Stalin. It was Mao's Chinese Communist Party. From 1958 to 1962, Mao's Great Leap Forward policy led to the deaths of up to 45 million people, easily making it the biggest episode of mass murder ever recorded. Why is communism so adversarial to our God-given freedoms? Dr. Martin Luther King said, "In communism, the individual ends up in subjection to the state, and if man's rights and liberties stand in the way of that end, they are simply swept aside. His liberties of expression, his freedom to vote, his freedom to listen to what news he likes, or choose what books he wants to read are all restricted. Man becomes hardly more, in communism, than a depersonalized cog in the turning wheel of the state." Today, the Chinese Communist Party continues to rain terror and snuff out freedoms of its citizens. Under the leadership of Xi Jinping, the CCP has detained 2 million Uyghurs in concentration camps. Uyghur individuals have been arrested for simply being Muslim. They've been tortured, sterilized, and forced to do slave labor. The CCP is again attempting to eradicate an entire population of people, forcing women to abort their children, destroying Uyghur culture and history, and even bulldozing Uyghur cemeteries. This is genocide. And the world looking on must do more to call out the Chinese Communist Party for their human rights violations and condemn them and punish them economically in the strongest ways possible. As a state legislator, I've had a chance to work with my colleagues to push back on the CCP, as well as Lisa, who's been fantastic to work with, in trying to get our Confucius Institutes closed in Utah that were funded by the Chinese Communist Party. Next, during the session in January, I hope you're all following because we have another Confucius classroom we're working on getting closed. We do have a school district that's accepting funding from the CCP. And I'll also be running a bill recognizing the Uyghur genocide and prohibiting China from making agricultural land purchases in Utah. So there's a lot of work to do. As a state that is the crossroads of the West and becoming an increasingly large international player, we must stand up against communist China and their anti-freedom policies. So today, we honor and remember those that were brutally killed by Mao and China's Communist Party legal practices. May those who are lost be at peace, and know that those who are living here on earth will continue to fight to preserve their memory and work to ensure that their deaths were not in vain. Thank you.
Before I begin, I want to thank and acknowledge the hand of God in this project. The inspiration to create this event has come through many prayers and through my faith in His holy teachings. I want to thank my husband, Nathan, for supporting me to do this event and for helping me sponsor it. He completed all the tasks that I could not do on my own. I want to thank my children, Kate and Jane, for sacrificing our family time and for encouraging me to keep going. And I'd like to thank my wonderful Chinese teacher, Hu Lao Shi, Xie Xie Ni. She helped me work through this difficult event and history, and we did it together. That's so fun. I'd like to thank those who have helped to sponsor this event. If you're here, please stand. Bishop Ken Cutler, Xiao Yan, Cheyenne Liu, and Representative Kay Christopherson. For sponsoring Bill HB 116. You made this day official. And let's also acknowledge the members of the Utah State Legislature who supported and voted in this bill in 2019. And my name is Lisa Fifield. In 1999, I was offered the chance of a lifetime by the Chinese Communist government, and I became China's first American ballerina. I performed with the Guangzhou Ballet Company for 1.5 years. The moment I landed in Guangzhou, a feeling of love swept over me as a new world unveiled before my eyes. I went to China only knowing one sentence in Chinese, 我不知道, or I don't know, which was my answer to everything. The many adventures I had communicating with the great people of China are experiences that I will always cherish and be forever grateful for. Something that really struck me, though, when I arrived in China was that my First Amendment rights were gone. There was no freedom of speech. All my mail was read ahead of time, and I even had to explain my faxes before I even had a chance to read them. There was no freedom of religion. The Chinese people could not attend church, and we had church in an apartment building with the windows closed. There was no freedom of assembly. People called Falun Gong were gathering in parks doing breathing exercises together and were being imprisoned for it. No freedom of the press. I loved watching television from Hong Kong because it was in English. But any sensitive material on the news was immediately blocked from my view. And everywhere I went, there was this mysterious face staring back at me. Who was it? I learned his name was Mao Zedong. The face of Chairman Mao was on the walls of the ballet company, in store shops, and even on Chinese money. This was strange since I had come from Utah, and instead of pictures of Jesus, I saw pictures of Mao. Everyone in the antique market seemed to be buying these little red books, and so he apparently signed my copy, and so I bought one too. And on my solo journey to Beijing, I went to Tiananmen and had my picture taken in front of Mao like all the other Chinese tourists. So was Mao good? Since everyone in China, for some reason, seemed to say the same thing, I decided I needed to start doing my own research. Let me tell you a little bit about what I learned. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away from America, there was a beautiful people, and theirs was a great civilization. Their culture was so unique and different from any other. They practiced ancient wisdom, philosophy, religion, medicine, and all the arts. They had their own language and writing system, and their inventions like the compass, silk making, porcelain, movable print, and paper were among the countless inventions which blessed our world. They built the world's largest man-made wall to keep them safe. However, the Great Wall of China could not defend the people against divisions inside their own country. And then there was a great war. It was the Civil War, and the fate of this nation hung by a thread. In 1949, the side that lost, the nationalists, led by Chiang Kai-shek, they fled for Taiwan. And the side that won, the communists, led by Mao Zedong, took over China. Mao promised the people that the communist government would provide equal shares of land to the poor, enough food for everyone, and a lifestyle of luxury that the people had never known. However, this was just propaganda. The reality was the communists would soon enslave all the people to serve them. Mao was not a great leader. He became the greatest mass murderer in the history of the world. By most estimates, he killed more people than Stalin and Hitler combined. Mao and the few who were in charge lived lives of luxury. They ate to their heart's content and lived in mansions, while millions of people were left destitute, starved, and were in servitude to the leaders at the top. With the people's individual property abolished, there was no way to have privacy and no way to think for themselves. The nuclear family was abolished and the communists were established. People's things were forcibly stolen and their lives destroyed. Mao used the Russian model to reform China and started in 1958 Da Yue Ji for the Great Leap Forward. The Chinese people everywhere were forced to remove all the metal in their homes to help China catch up with Great Britain. So the people sacrificed all their crops, cooking utensils, tools, and anything containing a little metal to the government. For our Chinese listeners, I want to tell the stories in Chinese. 共产党高级干部那个时候真是土匪，他们把什么东西都砸坏了，他们甚至砸坏了我们的炉子，我们也必须给他们我们唯一的缝纫针。我们老百姓没有办法做任何事情。Even my parents had no idea what was going on or what was happening in our society. They were peasants. They did not understand what communism was all about. Suddenly, our house was empty. The walls were torn down, and our private possessions were taken away. 即使我的父母也不知道我们的社会怎么搞的。他们是农民，他们也不懂共产主义是什么。突然，我们的房子被清空，墙壁被推倒，我们私人的东西都被拿走了。我们家里有古老的家具，上面有美丽的雕刻，是我母亲的嫁妆，全部的东西被走了，拿走了，被砸碎了，然后丢到一个大熔炉里。我猜他们也没有办法，因为这是共产党的政策，没有人敢问为什么。Let's just go right forward, please. Okay, I can walk you through it. Okay, stop right there. Next one. When all the metal had been confiscated, it was melted down inside backyard furnaces that burned for weeks and months on end. Professionals who knew better, even leaders who had expertise, were afraid to tell Mao the truth. This wasn't going to work. Mao would not listen to the experts. He was so blinded by his own brilliance and his own ideas, and was so ruthless to those who opposed him. So, everyone's metal was made into pig iron. It couldn't be used for anything. It was totally useless and good for nothing. The people were right. There was no logic or reason to what was happening. Mao reminds me of the emperor in a children's book, The Emperor's New Clothes. You know the story. The emperor relied on everyone to reinforce his own lies about himself and his beautiful clothes, which didn't even exist. The emperor was naked, but he didn't want everyone to know that he was a fool, so he made sure that everyone reinforced his lies. Even the words people called Mao, like Mao Zhuxi and great leader, were titles people had to use to show allegiance. In the story, it took a child to state the obvious and tell everyone how ridiculous the emperor was. Unfortunately, China had to wait for years for Mao to finally die before that ever happened. This is like what Mao Zedong did to the people of China. He built up a corrupt government that puffed itself up bigger and bigger, basing its broken system on many, many lies. Campaign after campaign, there were people questioning along the way, but their voices became too small to be heard, and they were silenced. There was no law to reinforce what the government was doing to harm the people. The people were scared, and everyone was trying to stay alive. Have you ever been hungry or watched people you love slowly starve to death? Without homes and without the permission to grow their own vegetables, the communal kitchens no longer had any food to feed the masses. And the next one, and the next one, and the next one, right there. 老百姓不敢做生意，甚至于卖一样的蛋都不敢，否则他们会被拷打，或者被指控为走资本主义路线。This brought another disaster. From 1952 to 1962, called the 三年大饥荒. Walls and homes were torn down to create fertilizer. Grain and silos rotted as the government refused to feed the people that grew it. They hardly owned anything for themselves now. 老百姓到处觅食，他们找树叶、草、树皮吃。As almost 40 million people slowly starved to death, ate each other, and watched in horror when harvested grain was shipped to Russia to pay for the debt in a deal that now made with Stalin to acquire military arms in exchange for the grain the people had grown. Half of China may die, Mao shrugged. He also encouraged people to embrace their death when he told them it was a wonderful thing to die, and you couldn't experience it if you just kept on living. However, he was obsessed about finding ways to thwart his own death and made sure he had the best medical care. Ordinary people like us could do nothing about it, the Chinese people said. Proverbs 29:2 reads, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn. Mao was always trying to compete with Stalin. He dreamed of splitting America with him. He got ridiculous scientific theories from Russia, one which introduced agricultural failure. Eliminate the 4 pests campaign. In 1958 to 1962, 灭四害 rats, flies, mosquitoes, and sparrows. 共产党告诉老百姓，杀死所有的麻雀，因为它们吃掉了我们的麦子。但是，当虫子来的时候，因为麻雀都被人杀死了，所以麦子还是被虫子吃掉了。共产党没有逻辑的解释，也没有说理由为什么他们这么做，这么做，这么说。Mao didn't serve the people. Communism served itself. The picture painted to the people was indeed too good to be true. And the reality that the people lived was pure hell. And those who survived are left with a very bitter taste in their mouths. For the people learned through hard and painful experiences. These new rulers now controlled everything, which was beyond the reach of the common people. And they soon forgot what life was like before the communists took over. They were so busy fighting against each other that they forgot who they once were. But the people were scared. They could no longer trust each other because neighbors were forced to tell lies about neighbors. People were so afraid because men, women, and children were rounded up and forced to watch people tortured in the public square. And they died in the worst ways too. Mao told the executioners not to be afraid of violence. He called death and torture wonderful. Unlike Stalin, who kept executions in the dark, he purposefully terrified the people. To stay alive, they had to tell lies about each other, their family members, and themselves. During the Down to the Countryside movement, 上山乡下, from 1968 to 1976, when all the Red Guards were sent away because these teenagers had been given permission to wreak absolute havoc everywhere in China. The youth were sent to the countryside to be re-educated by the peasants. Shen Fan was one of these sent down youth. He left Beijing. Go on. And there. To remodel the globe. Though he was only 13 years old, he left his family, he didn't have a choice, and went to the countryside to do back-breaking work, like pick his shovel into frozen earth and carry buckets full of rocks up the hill all day long. Who would ask a child to build rice terraces right in the middle of winter? When the spring rains came, this young man walked in awe. As a result of months of hard labor, blood, sweat, tears washed all those rocks down the hill, and the earth returned to its original landscape. He said, 没有人, next one, 没有人敢质问伟大的毛主席的话，可是我认为他也许跟我一样的孤独。他说的话全部都是虚假的，因为我不想要一辈子住在乡下，所以我日复一日跟他们一起唱爱国歌曲。下定决心，也一起读毛泽东的小红书，一起大声地说毛主席万岁。Next one. Because of Chairman Mao and the Wenhua Daguoming Cultural Revolution from 1966 to 1976 during the Fourfold or Sijiu campaign to destroy all the old customs, all the old ideas, old habits and traditions, and help China progress into a social utopia. Everything had to be destroyed. China was full of treasures from the past, and so this required a lot of destruction. Precious family records, books, and ancient scriptures were cast into the fires. Only 18 years old, fleeing China with only the clothes on their backs, Hu Wenping and Liu Guixiang arrived on the shores of Taiwan. No money, no relatives, poor and destitute. With hard work and labor, they had one cherished daughter, Dante. Who took her? Who ushered her? What inspired me to do this event. Many of these Chinese people have no living relatives, no family ties, and no way to trace their family history, but their family knows them. Are new things good? Yes, but so are old things. In our home, we value old things. And our home is full of good antiques. Those of you who've been to our house, we know. Some things stand the test of time. Like the traditional family, a father and mother raising their family together. Freedom of speech is an old idea. Some people say that with the internet, some people shouldn't be heard. We need those who are smart to protect us from the stupid people who can't think for themselves or are easily led astray. Other old habits, like praying to God, goes beyond reason and understanding for some. Old customs, like reading an old document, like the Constitution of the United States, which just celebrated its 235th birthday and is our nation's greatest export. As hundreds of other countries have patterned their constitutions after ours, is this not a treasure? Because of all the First Amendment rights I have, I was able to learn for myself what happened to the Chinese people. Many of the books I have here have been banned from China. Many people have been silenced and terrorized in America, and I am speaking out for them. Many victims never got to tell their own family stories. They never got to share their books or talk about their own life stories. When I first went to China, I didn't know who Mao was, but now I do. Mao is wicked, sinister, twisted, evil, and he manipulated and brainwashed the beloved Chinese people. And he brainwashed them into serving a broken ideology, and they are enslaved still. Yang Mianyuan was an elegant, educated, and accomplished, well-respected woman who in 1966 was forced to surrender the keys to her home to the Red Guards. These teenagers had been given permission by the communist government to rampage, torture, kill, terrorize, interrogate, and imprison people. While she was held captive in a room in her home, she could hear the Red Guards' laughter overhead. The Red Guards were blissfully happy in their work of destruction because they were sure they were doing something to satisfy their god, Mao Zedong. Escaping from the room, she saw one guard had arranged her precious Kangxi wine cups on the floor and was smashing each one under the soles of his feet. 我拿起剩下的一个酒杯，放在我的手掌上，然后我把我的手伸出去，我说：“这个酒杯快300岁了，你好像比较珍惜照相机、手表，还有望远镜。” 每一年都有更好的照相机、更好的手表、更好的望远镜，可是世界上没有人会做像这样的酒杯了。这是我们的文化的遗产，每一个中国人都应该觉得很骄傲。 And this is our Constitution. It is nearly 250 years old. It provides us the rights that millions in the history of the world have never known. It must be protected, defended, and fought for. This is a part of our American heritage, and every American should be proud of it. Shishi. We are now going to take a moment for a commemoration of the victims. If you did not take one of the lights on the table, we'll give you a minute to go and get one. Go ahead and turn on your individual tea lights, and we will watch this film, this slideshow beginning in just a moment. appreciate your compassion and your concern for the great people of China. Their story is a cautionary tale for everyone here. For our final speaker, I'd like to introduce to you Babar Ilchi. He is the program director at the Campaign for Uyghurs. Babar is also a host of the podcast Terran Talks. Through the Terran Network,